Today on this old Strat, we have a 1997 Squier Stratocaster in deep royal blue. It is actually maybe half a shade darker than what you're seeing on the screen here. It has black accessories such as the pick guard, volume and tone buttons, pickup select switch, pickups, and the machine heads. So upon closer inspection, we find that it's been sitting for a while. Nobody's been playing it. There's a little dusty in that, but we have new strings and everything to put on it. We've noticed that there are a few little nicks and crannies here that it has taken over the years. I believe the knobs have been repainted because they do not have the lettering a different color. It is all just completely flat black, and the knob hasn't been done to the whammy bar. So a little crease here in the pick guard. The pick guard is obviously was made black. It hasn't been painted or anything, but I have noticed that the machine heads, which are black, have been changed out. They are pings on here, and you can see in between there the little holes from where the originals were bolted on. So we're going to take a look at this and see what we can do. Pull it all apart, get it all cleaned up, see what we have. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is check out neck relief, which is good. There's just a slight bow to it. It is straight, it is not warped or anything. String action is acceptable range by all means. And now we're going to make sure we have all our tools together to start stripping it down and find out just what's inside. I did notice that the pickups are way out of alignment. Major out of alignment, but we'll get that all set up. There's no use in us setting it up before we pull it all apart, because, well, we're going to pull it all apart. So, one screwdriver has Phillips on one end, straight blade on the other. As everything pretty much on this thing is a Phillips, that's pretty much all we're going to need until we get to the point where we need the contact cleaner. At this point, I'm going to take all the strings off. I'm not going to make you sit through all that. Some of the strings are not coming through the back. They just won't come up through, so I'm going to take the back plate off and find out why that is. I've never run into this before. I've only ever taken apart a few guitars in my lifetime, so we will see what that is. Always be sure to dispose of your strings in a environmentally friendly nature. You have to be careful with them because they are strings and they are dangerous to wildlife and that sort of thing. Always, as well, keep handy a small bin to put your hardware in. Okay, it has all three strings on it. Now, can I do this by hand, or am I going to need a tool? I'm going to need a tool. So, off to the tool bin. Okay, so what I've found out was that if you put the whammy handle back on, stretch and wiggle, I have been able to remove some of the other ones. These two are still being a bit of an issue. So what we do is make a little bend in the string here so that once you take this off, you can try and twist the string to yes. Okay, so tech tip of the day: whammy bar up, wiggle. If this happens to you, I've never had this happen before, but I have had my Strat block blocked up so that it does not work, it does not do anything, and hence this is not an issue for it. That wasn't very easy. I eventually had to get all the strings off and wiggle and wiggle and wiggle, but it finally did come up through the hole. So now all our strings are off and we can commence taking this thing apart. One more thing here, the string disposable. I've got all the knobs at one end. Make sure that they're all in a row. Make sure you have 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And wrap. Okay, once you get them in there, make yourself a small loop, run it up to the end, and then just feed all 6 through the center. Feed all 6 through the center. Voila. And dispose of properly. So next we're going to end up with screws, because all these screws are all Phillips. They're all pretty much the same looking, but we got to keep them straight. So I've put the 6 from the back plate back into the back plate, and I will set it aside in a manner that none of the strings or screws will disappear. And at that point we start with these. So flip to straight blade. No wonder that one took a little time. Gently pry from multiple sides. You don't want to break these. And as I expected, black on the outside, white on the inside, and although you can see the writing there, the writing is all black as well. You have to be careful not to damage the pickguard when you're doing that. Volume is the one that is closest to the pickups. Volume, tone, tone. And so that I think we will leave on there and just leave that attached so that it comes off with the switch. All the pickguard screws have been taken out. I've left the mounting for the pickups and the switches and that intact because I'm just going to take everything off at once. You have to be careful because of course there's wires inside that are attached to other ends. There will be wires that go inside down here. There's a tunnel in underneath that those wires go through, and one to the back of here, so you have to be a little careful with them. But here we go. Okay, so you can see power going down through here. This goes down to your cord pickup. This one goes into the back to ground out the bottom here. Now let's see. I believe maybe this pickguard has been painted as well. If so, it has a good coat on it, but it's white on the back and black everywhere else. I can see a bit of the white where it's been painted black. What we've got inside is the cutouts for the pickups and the cutouts for all the buttons and that sort of thing. Let's have a little look at this, see what we're looking at. Okay, 1, 2, 3 for the pickups. Pickups don't seem to have anything written on them. They are black pickups though. They weren't painted white. Pots all seem to be factory. So, numbered 1, 2, 3. So, now it is cleanup time. We're not going to bother taking this off or that off. Everything seems to be working good. We don't want to mess with it any more than we have to. But I want to be able to spray these with contact cleaner, make sure that they're all working fine, and just double check the wiring to make sure that we don't have any scratch dents or anything. These are in line to fit up through there. Got a little bit of hot water with just a dab of kitchen dish soap, and I want to wipe down all underneath here so that we can get that back together, and it will be much easier to work with without messing up this wiring. What I have noticed here is that the pots are all on a, don't know if you can see it here very well, but there is a metal tape that was put on the back of the pick guard so that all the pots and everything are grounded to each other, so that just reduces buzz. I've cleaned up most of the outside here. You want to make sure you get lines around where the pick guard actually attach. Everything else inside looks to be fairly well. The pick guard I will do mainly when it gets reinstalled. I will go around the outer edges. You want to be very careful because you've got small wires that you really don't want to mess with. My guess is that this was just repainted, and obviously he numbered these so that they went back in the right spot, because you can see the overspray there. Finish seems to be fairly well underneath it, like it hasn't faded that much. You could tell from the finish of where's outside as to underneath. Sometimes if this here part will fade, you will notice it when you take the pick guard off. There will be a line going around there, and there is not. One thing I haven't done here yet is spray the pots. I should probably do that right shortly. Just be careful, don't twist the wires. One little bit more spray. Clean it off to finish as quick as you can. It's supposed to evaporate into nothing, but why take a chance? That will evaporate by itself. Let's turn this around, get it out of the way for a bit. Make sure we've got all grease and grime out from underneath. Of course, while you're doing this, you be careful to make sure that none of the wires are under anything. Why is that? It might just be the pick itself. Pick guard bent. Let's start putting the screws back in, because although we're going to clean the pick guard, we don't want it moving around as we're doing it, because wires, blah blah blah. Another thing that I just found out, when you're removing the pick guard screws, take a look at them closely, because some are longer than others. Two of them have a little shank on the end of it. These two longer ones go right beside the whammy setup. By trial and error of trying the long screws in each hole, these two were the only two that would accept the longer screws. Remember that when you're taking apart these things, just take special note of that. The more you know. So now I've got the pickguard reinstalled. Everything tightened. Don't over tighten them because they will strip fairly easily. Now I return to cleaning this up a little bit. As I say, very soft cloth, a little bit of dish soap, very little, just enough to give it a bit of a cleaning. And then I'm going to go over the board here, the guard, make sure it's all cleaned up, the edges are all cleaned up. So we've washed down the front and the back real well, made sure we got any of the lines from the guards. Now we're going to reinstall the springs here. There's a lot of different ways people will decide to or not. I actually put wooden blocks down in here so that the whammy would not work, because the neat thing about whammy is the unneat thing about whammy is that messes up your tuning. So I've put wooden blocks in here and jammed it so that there's no movement of the whammy at all. This one is not mine, so I'm going to put it back in. As for the springs, a lot of people only do one spring or that, or two springs. We're going to put all three in. We're going to go to the middle at the top, middle at the bottom, and then the outside two, middle to the outer edge. Bam, bam. One spring seems to be twisted backwards. That doesn't make any sense. So maybe it's just the way it is. Alright, we're going to reinstall the springs, get the guard ready to put on the back, and then we're going to take off the neck, see what we can find out under there. I have been looking underneath all these things and I'm not seeing any numbers other than the 1, 2, 3 on the back of the pots to keep them in the proper order, but there's nothing in the back here. You know, you sometimes look for initials, numbers. They could mean something at the factory. Okay, I'm going to reinstall the springs and be right back. Okay, so reinstalling these springs is a little more complicated than I expected, and I did mess up the center spring a bit, but I went all in a line because that was the easiest way to do it without damaging the rest of the guitar. That's not even damage. The springs, by all means, useful in that position. It's just got a little woobie in it. It will still return and all that sort of stuff. Should be no issues that way. As I say, a lot of people only use 2 springs. I have my 3 installed, but as I say, I've also got it wood blocked so that it will not move. Okay, let's reinstall this cover. And move on to the next procedure, which is neck removal. Okay. Not going to make you wait through my screws in, so don't over tighten them. Make sure they're snug, blah blah blah. Now, these are all snug but not gorillaed in. I'm going to have to go get myself a different screwdriver for here, because these here screws are much larger and require something bigger than a miniature, or else you're just going to strip them and you're not going to like that very much. A full-sized Phillips screwdriver. real slow. If these things don't want to loosen right off the bat, give them a little bit of a tightening first. Just wiggle it a bit, that way you might just have to break loose a little bit. But anyways. Okay, these screws are long because they are holding on the neck. And probably wouldn't be a bad idea to, when you're pulling them out one at a time and see if any of them are longer than the others, like I should have done with the pick guard screws. Hear a little bit of the wood creaking. Bottom two, top two, both the same, all the same size. Okay, this is different. Mine has a rubber grommet that goes between the plate and this, which this one obviously doesn't. So let's take a look. Okay, there is something in there. Yes, SEP97. It was made in September. You probably won't be able to see that, but there we go. Yeah. Can't get it to focus in either way. SEP97. Don't see any shims or anything in there to try and keep it straight. This is all good. A little bit of blue right there, which doesn't make sense. It doesn't seem to have come off of there. But there is the made in Korea, crafted in Korea, serial number KV97082498. KV97 obviously meaning it was from 1997. K, Korean, blah blah blah. Usually, let's see, 9708. 08 might mean that the neck was made in August, and then that was made in September, and then 2498, who knows. Okay, so we look at this, everything seems good. Truss rod setting is at the top. We don't need to do that because it was in fine shape. Still seems to be. Alrighty. So that is that. There are just a couple of minor scratches on the back of the neck here. Could probably be sanded out if you really wanted to, but it doesn't seem to affect the slide or anything. Okay. Sure everything's nice and cleaned up. No issues at all. Obviously, it went good together because they didn't have to put any shims. You'll sometimes find little pieces of wood in here. They put it back together. It's not straight. But obviously, these ones were fairly well made. And there is a hole in the center there. What that is for, I don't know. It does go right through. Possibly to hang when they were painting. Could be something like that. Don't understand it. Oh well. Alright, let's give it a little bit of a good clean down in here that we've said, since we do have it off. As I say, mine has a rubber gasket that goes between the plate and the backing. So there's no marks in it like this one has, because there are marks. Okay, so now we are reinstalling the neck what you do is screw these in by hand, because what you want to do is make sure that the other end of these go into the actual holes that the neck has already installed in them from before. Tighten them as much as you can by hand. That way you're assured that you're not messing up the holes that were already in there. Okay, once you're confident that you have reached those holes, just sink them, don't tighten them. And then once you get them there, a little twist and alternate back and forth so that you're assured of a nice tight fit. Stagger the tightening pattern like you would on your car wheels, and voila. Now let's give this thing a final clean down and get ready to restring it. I've left the knobs off because I'm going to clean them next, but that's obviously just a tedious little job. Once we get it all back together, then we'll start looking at the setup. As I say, most of it's already set up really well. The string action height is good. The neck relief was good. I'm going to of course double check that. These here pickups need to be adjusted really bad because they were not even close. That's about the only thing I saw that way. Now it has been repainted because right beside the screw holes here, you can see a little bit where it's worn off the black and got a little white underneath them. Whoosh. The fretboard itself is in fairly good shape. There is one ding in it here. Doesn't seem to be structurally significant or anything like that. I'm not going to bother cleaning that up too much. I'm just going to wipe it down good. Well, you got to be careful what you put on your fretboards anyways. A lot of things will lift the fretboard or damage the finish, so you have to be careful of what you use to clean your guitars. That's why I'm using 1 drop of dish soap in about maybe 2 cups of water. That seems to be enough. It's not harsh, it's soft. Etc. Okay. Comes up nice. There are a few dings in it here and there from obvious use. So it was a used guitar. As I say, if somebody went through the hassle of painting it black and the knobs and all that, they obviously wanted that for a reason. The only thing that's not black done on it, other than the rear plate, which of course doesn't really need to be done, is the whammy handle. I do have some black paint, touch-up paint for my car. That might be because of it being more of an acrylic and a solid substance. It might last a little longer, but this plastic, my guess is, would give a bit and it would chip. So don't know, we'll check that out. Now I'm going to clean up the knobs. Not sure what I'm going to do with them because, as I say, the engraved lettering should be a different color. I could put some white on there and wipe it off and hopefully have the white stay down inside, but then you've got to do all the numbers around here, and then you're going to get into the grooves on the side because they are the old top hat style knob. I don't think it's really worth it because a lot of people don't really look at that. They know that they crank it all one way. It's in the lowest position, and then you usually just, not many people go down and look at it. So that's where we're at. Be back in a couple of seconds. Okay, I'm taking the pick guard back off because the volume button, the shaft was a little cockeyed. So silly me thought that if I just undid this little screw here and readjusted it, that everything would be just honky-dory. No, not quite. The whole pot has started to twist in the back, so I have to take it apart, make sure the potentiometers are all aligned properly. No wires were damaged in my stupidity. And see if I can tighten it with the shafts being in a straight line. So that, because as you noticed I said about those two little scratches in the pick guard that was showing the white through, that's why they were there. It was because the actual shaft was not straight. So we learn. What did I say earlier? The more you know. Well, I know now. Okay, let's open this up. Check the pots. They are not aligned anyways. One sticks this way, one sticks that way, one sticks that way. I don't think it's going to matter that much, other than let's just see if we can make sure that the shafts sit straight once they get in there. This one is a little bit out. So let's see if we can loosen that a bit. And find out why it is crooked. The potentiometer just sits crooked. Why? I don't know. Be very careful. Aha! That's what I wanted not to do. Okay, what can we do about that? The potentiometer does not set level. About face. All these wires are attached to very short leads, so you can't see over the other side. And now I gotta go get my super duper glasses. 1 second. Okay, so on the potentiometer, where the shaft goes through the hole and there's a side rim around here, one spot there's a little tab that sticks out just a little wee bit, and it has to fit into a hole in the board. And this one is obviously just not the right size. So I either have to bore out that hole or chop off a bit of the pot. And if I'm not mistaken, I can probably use one of the screws to gently widen that hole just enough for the tab to stick through. I probably just went through the whole guard, but let's just see what happens. Bammo! She's flush. And I did come through the hole, but the hole is under the button. So that works out. Now, where did the other washer go? There's a miniature washer here that I have to get. And then we are back in business. Okay. So watch for that. That's why the shaft was off kilter, was because the tab that keeps it from twisting this way, the whole pot in behind. So when you turn the volume button, or the tone button in this case, it doesn't just turn everything in the back as well. It's got a pokey through so that you just twist the shaft. Okay, the more you know. Now the pot is straight and flat. Don't forget your washer and the nut. Well, let's see what we can do. Careful. Delicate. Careful. Shafts seem to be fairly straight up and down. Okay, so now just a slight bit more just to make sure that these are secure. And reinstall pickguard. Okay, I am learning lots about these things today. Oh yeah, long screws to the bottom. 2 long screws there. The rest of the pickguard screws are all shorter ones. Remember that. And remember, always sink all the screws first off, and then go back and secure them a little more tightly. And that's all attached. Now we've got our buttons. Our button goes down. So down is that way. That would turn it up. Being right-handed, we want the buttons to kind of show to what we're looking at. Tone flat to the head and crank it up. So once you get the first one done, tone, tone, volume is always closest to the pickups. Try not to sink these too much because they do have to roll freely. Haha! And look what I did. Tone, tone, volume. And I installed the second button without turning it down, so tone does not point in the right direction. Down, down, down. Tone. Okay, so they aren't completely flat anyways, but they're a lot better than what they were. So when I was checking out the pickups, I found that right where the pickup meets the pick guard, there was a little crusty on there. I'm not sure if maybe when it was painted it was put back together before it was completely dry or not, but that might have something to do with why these pickups are so far out of adjustment. So I'm just going to clean up in there because I didn't want to remove the pickups from the plate. And if I have to go back in, I will. But let's see if we can get these pickups to adjust out. Okay, this one was way off. Okay, that's good. This one, I think these were all low. So I'm just going to even them out. This one has to come way up, I know. But we can recheck that out once we get the strings installed. Strings are Elixir, Great Tone Long Life Polyweb, original coating, anti-rust, plain steels. This is an 80 to 20 bronze acoustic guitar strings. Okay. Well, let's take another look inside there, because there were 3 sets of strings that came with this. 2 of them were these though. So that's why I was going to put them on, because we had 2 sets of them. And that way, if somebody didn't want that, then they could switch it to the other ones. And I could probably still make it to the guitar store to get electrics if those other oddball ones aren't electrics. Hi-ya! Okay, so it's about an hour later. I just got back from the guitar shop getting electric strings. These are D'Addario, bright tone, round, spring wound, 10 through 46 X EXL 110, regular light gauge strings. Because this guitar is going to be for sale, there's not much use in me spending all kinds getting special strings on it. Away we go. And I need the E string, and you can tell because it has a brass rivet, or whatever you want to call it, on the end. They are color coded. Okay, so you run it through up to the top. Now, rule of thumb, you're putting it on the first peg, right? So you want to go up 2 from there, cut it beyond the second. This is the one you're feeding it into. Skip one, the next one up. I always give it just a slight bit extra. Do it to the top half and snap. Okay. Make sure you put this in a spot where you will find it, because you have to dispose of them properly. So there, tail goes up past 2, through here, kink it a little bit, that will help you keep it all in the right spot, and then wind. Some people will wind it around a couple times and then put it through. Don't care. Do what you have to. But when you come around to the tail sticking out, you want the string to go under. There will be the tail sticking through the hole. You want the string to go under when it winds on. Okay. Don't put too much pressure on the strings yet. Always start with the fattest string. Same thing when you're taking them off. When you're taking them off, start with the skinniest string, because what you're going to do with this here wooby, you take the large strings off. That puts a lot of extra pressure on these ones, and it'll snap. Roll up. go, you're starting here, so now you're going to go up 2 extra and cut there. Okay, we're on to the last string, and there's just a couple things that you need to know about this. Obviously, you are double checking your string colors and everything. Now the string goes down into this here slot, and inside there you can see the back of the whammy, and there are obviously 6 holes in there, of which you need to thread the strings. Now once you get in there and you pull them through, you'll notice there's a little spool on the end of the string here. I'm not going to up close it, but when it goes down in there, you want to make sure that once it goes into the little spindle, the hole that it goes through, that it goes down roughly about another inch before the string tightens at the other end. That is so that you know that it is seated completely, and you don't go halfway through tuning it up and then all of a sudden pling and it goes off. The other thing you need to know is that at this end, once you get down into the last 2, you don't have anything to guide by, so you pick what looks to be about 2, snap it there. Okay, I am back just to finish this off a little bit. I have restrung it, I have tuned it up. We have now gone through this guitar, opened it up, made sure everything was in working order. I live in an apartment, I'm on the 8th floor, so I can't really crank it up and see what is going to go on with it. My apologies for the coloring of the quality of the video. It's getting later in the day now and I'm losing light. So there we go. 1997 Squier Stratocaster. It seemed to have all the original electronics inside. The only things it looks like it was done was it was painted black here, and the fretboard and the machine heads have been switched out for pins, I think is what they say on this one. I don't know if you can see very well there, but there are still the little screw holes from where the originals were on there, which I don't understand because my 87 Strat has the similar setup to this. I don't know that they're pings or not, but it seems that the machine heads were changed so that they could be black and match the rest of the blackout. Now the only thing that's really not black on it is that. I'm not going to touch that, of course, but the whammy bar. And I happen to have some black paint that might just do that. Okay. Swish, swish, swish. So, there you go. 1997 Squier Stratocaster in royal blue. That blue that you're seeing there is a little more accurate to what it actually looks like. So it's the blue blackout is what I'm going to call it. So, thank you for watching. Have a nice day. Bye now.